Oh,
Okay, good. We are recording now.
someone is recording now.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
Did you? I clicked recording. Did you click it as well?
I think you did it, so that's fine. I hope
Okay, it's okay.
All right, good. So, in week one, we had our introductions, and we talked about our attempts to learn another language, and we talked about some of the things that make a good language learner. Yeah. And then in week two, last week, we talked about two things: aptitude and motivation. Okay. And we saw an article by somebody called Mercer, and she wrote in 2012, and she doesn't believe that there is a real aptitude for language learning. I think that, Nazmi, you were able to share this article on our website if people are interested in learning more about aptitude for language learning. I put speech marks around aptitude because Mercer doesn't really believe. She thinks that it's a myth that there is an aptitude. She really thinks that a much more is about motivation. And last week, we looked at two types of motivation. We looked at first at extrinsic motivation. Maybe you love the target language. Maybe you love, for example, French or Arabic or English, a learner. Or maybe you don't love them, and that could be a problem. That's an extrinsic problem. Or maybe you have a love of the target culture. Then we would call that an integrative extrinsic motivation, because you want to integrate with the culture. It could be that you like certain types of music, okay? So that would be an integrative extrinsic motivation. Or you could dislike the culture. And that's a problem, of course, for language learning, okay? Because culture and language are linked in interesting ways, in very complicated ways. Or you could have a different type of extrinsic motivation, an instrumental motivation. Now, an instrument is a long word for a tool. So a tool is something like a screwdriver that we use with an end in mind. So you could see language as an instrument for you to get an external goal, such as a job or a promotion or more money, things like that. But most of what we talked about last week were not extrinsic motivations. They were intrinsic motivations. We talked last week about the things that a teacher can do in the classroom to motivate his or her students. And we watched a video. Now, I have a question for you. I included the link to the video in the slides, but I don't know if the video works for you in Gaza. Did anybody try to look at the video in your free time after the lesson? No? Okay, because I'm not 100% sure that it would work. I hope so. Okay. But we looked at a video of a teacher. She was teaching a reading lesson. And I wonder if you can think back 1 week. Can you remember some of the things that the teacher did to enhance the students' motivation? Do you remember she was teaching a lesson about a writer called J.K. Rowling? She wrote Harry Potter. So this teacher, what did she do to improve the students' motivation? Anybody? Mais.
Yes, I remember that she used some of different methods of teaching, like brainstorming or using pictures to demonstrate her idea, or make the class read the text for 3 minutes, then discuss what they have read with her.
Good. She seemed in control in many different ways. I agree, Mais. Yes. Esra, did you have anything else to add about some good motivational techniques that this teacher used?
Yeah, she was asking questions for the students, also encouraging them to answer and giving them activities and instructions, also in a funny way. That's it.
Yeah.
Also, she was changing her pose every time and interacting with students.
I agree. You've added some important things to what Mai said. Yes, let's have a look at some of the things that I think she did. Okay, so excuse me. So, oh, excuse me, I've lost my slide. She used the students' names. Okay. Her task setting was very good. I think Mais and Esther mentioned that. Mais talked about the teacher using pictures and handouts, and the teacher also used the whiteboard in a very efficient way. She talked about, she allowed the students to talk about their own lives at the end. As Esther said, the lesson was fun. I think she provided the right level of challenge as well. She thought about that carefully. Another thing, excuse me, Rose, you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, I remember that before they read about someone who was called, I think, Harry Potter, she asked them to avoid some question about what they know about him. And I think by this method, she teaches them that they have to read more to know about things and other people in the world. So
Yes.
they will feel curious as I said last time.
I agree. That was an important start to the lesson. She asked at the beginning, we call this a warmer. The activity is to set the context and warm up the students to ask them, what do you know about Harry Potter? That's an important thing, Ruth. Yes, thank you. Good. Other things, she was mixing interaction patterns. So the lesson wasn't only teacher-centered, she allowed chances for students to talk together in pairs. And that was nice for motivation, okay? And it also gives the teacher a nice rest, of course. And at the end, two more important, very important things. She knew her stuff. So by that, I mean that I think she was an expert about the English language. Okay, so that's very motivating for students. She knew her stuff. So, can I ask you a question, though? This is the teacher we saw last week. Was she? Where do you think she came from? Do you have any idea? What was her first language? Do you know? It's a very difficult question, but her first language was English. She was from England. So perhaps you think it's more difficult for an English language teacher, for example, from Palestine, to be an expert on the English language. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I think they can be. Like we have Dr. Nazmi here. English is not his first language, but he's a great doctor.
Who is speaking? Excuse me, I don't know.
Isra.
Isra. What a fantastic answer, Isra. Okay. I think your answer shows that you understand that even if your first language is not English, you can become a fantastic English language teacher, just like Dr. Nazmi. Good. But even if your English language is not perfect, you can still become a fantastic English language teacher, because you don't need to be perfect in everything, every aspect of the English language. You only have to be perfect in today's lesson. You understand the difference? So perhaps as long as you prepare, then you can be just as good as somebody whose native language is English. So if we look again at the slides, we can say that she was a good teacher last week because she knew her stuff. She was an expert in what she was teaching. And you can be an expert too, just as Esdras has said. And the last point is for motivation. She really wanted the students to learn. Okay? I think that is really, really important. Now, if you know that your teacher wants you to learn, that's a very strong motivator. For example, I'm sure you know that Nazmi wants you to learn, and that's very motivating, I think. So that was last week. We looked at motivation, okay, and we saw that a writer called Jeremy Harmer summarizes all of these in 5 A's. He talks about affect, which means emotions and feelings. Okay, and he talks about the importance of working on self-esteem and making your oops, excuse me, just a second. I've just clicked on something. Shared it by mistake. Okay, and the importance of clear task setting. And we saw that that achievement is very important for Harmer, making sure your goals are at the right level. And the activities should be relevant to students' lives and interests. And the attitude, the teacher must seem both knowledgeable and interested. And finally, agency, letting students make choices. So that's what we looked at last week. And this week's focus, we're moving on to look at another one of Ellis's principles. Okay, you know that every week we're looking at a different principle which Ellis thinks is important in the language teaching classroom. So, Taqwa, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? Do you have a question, Taqwa? No? Okay. I will continue then. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay? So, this week we're looking at the difference between learning rules against learning formulaic expressions. Okay? So, let's have a look. I asked you to answer the questions on the following slide. Okay? So these were your homework questions for this week. Paragraph number 1, I asked you do you understand the first sentence? It's the key to the rest of the section. And then I ask you to choose one other sentence that summarizes the rest of this first paragraph. For paragraph 2, my question was, which approach has traditionally been favored by teachers? And is this good or bad in Ellis's opinion? And for paragraph 3, I asked, what does Ellis say about an approach for beginners in the classroom? And later, for more advanced students in the classroom? Okay, so the first question, maybe you could take a picture of this screen with your mobiles, okay, because this is a useful thing to have in front of you. Esra, do you have a question?
No, I want to answer the first question.
Okay,
or
just
homework.
a second then. Let me just give everybody a chance. I'm happy to see all of these hands up. Okay. So how many questions? Okay. Let me choose Hala. Do you understand the first question? Can you summarize the first sentence? Because that's the key to the rest. What do you think the first sentence means? Hala.
Hi. I think the first sentence in second language, you should develop your phonetic expressions or set up phrases frequently and commonly used in language, and also improve your grammar so you can speak well.
Oh, okay. So let's have a look. This is what Hala said. Yeah. Let's have a look at the first sentence. Proficiency in a second language requires that learners acquire both a rich repertoire of formulaic expressions, which caters to fluency, and a rule-based, excuse me, I can't see that, competence, that is knowledge of specific grammar rules. And, oops, excuse me, I'm having problems because your faces are covering my my slides here. So okay. Excuse me. Okay, and a rule-based competence consisting of knowledge of specific grammatical rules which can cater to complexity and accuracy. And Hala said we need both formulaic expressions and grammar. Good. So Hala, your summary of that was good. Now, this is okay. Now, this is what Skian says. Yeah, he believes that we need 3 things when we are learning a language. Number 1, formulaic expressions, okay, which allow us fluency. And then he says we also need, excuse me, we need 2 things: formulaic expressions and rule-based fluency. And formulaic expressions allows us to be fluent, and rule-based competence, which means grammar, allows us to make sentences which are complex and accurate. Okay? Now, the interesting thing about what Skian says is that it's impossible for a learner to develop fluency and complexity and accuracy all at the same time. Okay, so sometimes learners become very frustrated because they want to become more fluent, and they want to become to make language which is more complex, and they want to avoid mistakes. 1, 2, 3, all at the same time. But Skian, who is a language expert, says it's impossible. You can improve fluency, but not at the same time that you improve complexity and accuracy. I find that quite interesting, the fact that we have to improve these different things a little bit separately. Okay, all right. So let's go back to my questions. So Hala gave a summary of the first sentence. Thank you, Hala. So let's look at the next question. Okay, I said, then choose one other sentence that summarizes the rest of the paragraph. Okay, so who can tell me what sentence in the first paragraph they have chosen, which is a nice summary of the rest of the paragraph? Who is feeling brave? Mais, which sentence did you choose?
I think the sentence which says that formulaic expressions may also serve as a basis for the later development of rule-based competence.
Stop.
I think this is the best.
Okay, all right. Does anybody disagree with Mais? Did anybody choose a different sentence?
What did she say? I
Mais chose the
didn't.
sentence. She chose the sentence in the middle, which says, formulaic expressions may also serve as a basis for the later development of rule-based competence.
I
Now
chose the same one.
You chose the same one. Who is that? Hala.
Hala.
Did anybody choose anything else? So do you have your hand up?
I agree with Mais and Hala. I also chose the same sentence.
Okay, interesting. All right then. Well, let's have a look at what I chose. Okay. Okay. So these are the answers. Paragraph number 1. Okay. I chose, okay. I chose the same one. Okay. First. The first time I read it, I chose the same one. Okay. But the second time I read it, I also thought that the sentence earlier is also important. There is now widespread understanding. There is now widespread acceptance of the importance played by formulaic expressions in language use. So the first time I read it, I agreed with Mais and Hala and Esra. And then I read it again, I wasn't sure. Okay, but those are two important sentences. Okay. Right. Well done. Let's look at paragraph 2. This is my question. Which approach has traditionally been favored by teachers? Okay. And is that good or bad in yeah. So which approach has traditionally been favored by teachers, and is it good or bad in Ellis's opinion? Nada. What do you think? Is it, so which approach, Nada, is it the formulaic or is it the rule-based, Nada?
The traditional approach, also known as the focus on terms approach, is like teaching students about all the grammar rules of English, such as verb tenses, sentence structures, and so on. So it's the other one, which is what I forget about it, but which is talking about the grammar and the sentence structures.
Good, yeah, it's the rule-based one.
Yeah, that's one.
That's correct. So Nada is right. Traditionally, teachers like to teach rules, okay? Now, the second part of the question, is it good or bad, in Ellis's opinion, to teach rules? Who wants to answer? Nada, do you still want to answer that?
Yeah.
Go on.
In Ellis's opinion, this approach is not the best because it doesn't take into account the difficulties that students experience when learning a new language. So Ellis is saying that traditional teachers have typically focused on teaching grammar rules, but this approach might not be the most effective way to help students actually use the language properly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Ellis thinks that it's probably 60% bad, but not 100% bad. He uses the word probably, which Nada, you mentioned Nada, the word probably. So probably we can say that Ellis thinks that traditionally teachers like to teach rules, but maybe we need to think a little bit about formulaic expressions as well, okay? And then paragraph 3, what does Ellis say could be a different approach for beginners compared to later, more advanced students? Okay. So Takwa, do you have your hand up?
Yes, okay. It suggests that language instruction should firstly focus on teaching formulaic expressions and then move on the grammar later. He argues that this approach provides a solid foundation for learning and makes the language more natural for beginner.
Well done. I agree, Takwa. He's quite clear that maybe formulaic expressions could be more useful for low-level learners at the beginning when they're learning English or Arabic, any language, for the first time. But then later, maybe learners can make more sense of rules when they are studying a language. Now, so these are my answers. Oh, excuse me. So these are my answers. So for paragraph 1, I said, choose one other sentence that summarizes the rest of the paragraph. And you chose the second one. Formulaic expressions may also serve as a basis for the later development of a rule-based competence. And I agreed. But then I also thought that the first part in red was useful. There is now widespread acceptance of the importance played by formulaic expressions in language use. And then paragraph 2, which approach has traditionally been favored by teachers? And as Nada said, it was rule-based. And is it good or bad? He's not sure. He thinks we probably do too much rule-based teaching. He says we must beware of rote learning. Rote learning means teaching our students to speak like parrots. Yeah. And finally, in paragraph 3, we said, what does Ellis say about an approach for beginners compared to an approach for more advanced students? And Takwa said, maybe we should use formulaic chunks more at the beginning when they're just starting out, and then we can start to teach our learners rules as they become more proficient. Thank you, Takwa. Okay. So I think, and I don't know if Nazmi agrees, but one of the things I've learned as a teacher is you can explain and explain and explain, and you can never be sure if students have understood something. But then it's important to try to use examples, because examples in all types of learning are very, very useful. So I'm going to try to give you some examples which, excuse me, the difference between formulaic chunks, pieces, and learning rules is quite difficult. So I think some examples will maybe help us to understand the difference. Okay? Now, this, as usual, I have my wife Giovanna here. She's helping me. You don't need to get up at the moment. She's always ready to help me with the technology. Now, 35 years ago, I was learning Italian. Maybe 40 years ago, I was learning Italian. I was a beginner in Italian, okay? And I learned a lot. I don't know how you learn your English. Your English is fantastic. I think you learn your English in part from good English language teachers, like Dr. Nazmi al-Masri, and in part from using the internet. Is this true? How do you learn your English? Does anyone want to put their hand up? Hala.
Yeah, it's true, I think. We did a self-study by ourselves to improve our English, and then we entered college and faced incredible doctors who teach us well. So we're improving more and more by ourselves and by
Okay. And Nada, what can you add to what Hala said?
I have a way that I have discovered recently, which is imagine you are a learner and you learn a phrase like, how are you, as a whole unit. Later on, you might break it down and learn that it's made up of smaller parts, like how plus are plus you. And then you can use those parts to learn even more complex language.
You know, Nada, that is such a useful answer for me. Because you are talking about formulaic chunks, okay? So your learners have learned a formulaic chunk, how are you? And they can use it, but they don't know the little pieces of it, yeah? So maybe later, as your learners grow, they will start to understand the rules. They will start to make links. So, Hala, your answer is perfect for today's lesson, yeah? I will come back. Hala.
No, it's not me. Isra, the one who answered the previous answer.
Okay, Isra, I'm sorry. So I will come back to you, to your how are you later in our lesson, because it's
Nada, guys,
Nada.
not me.
I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. I will come back to how are you later in the lesson, okay? Allah or Amina, how do you learn English? Yeah?
Yeah, actually, I always remember the saying in English, it said, learn English as a new baby. Yeah, so the nature of the people is to gain the language by listening first, then by speaking and repeating, memorizing some words and use them in the daily life. So yeah, actually I try to listen more and a lot, and for different levels, the beginner levels, and like this. I tried also to memorize a lot of fantastic expressions to use them and words. And yes, that's it.
Okay, excuse me, is this Allah or Amina?
Amna.
Okay, Amina, thank you. Yeah. So when you talk about memorizing useful expressions, then you are saying almost the same thing as, was it Nada said about the phrase, how are you? Getting students to memorize things. And maybe you don't understand the meaning of each word or the grammar of each word, but as a piece all together, a chunk, you understand how to use it. Yeah. Another thing which is interesting for me, when you tell me how you are learning the English language, is I am amazed at your pronunciation, because you have all of you have really good pronunciation. So it's not possible to get your level of pronunciation just from books.
Yeah, but, can I add something?
Yeah.
I meant by expressions like, for example, we have, it costs a hand and a leg. It means it's so expensive and it costs me a lot. I meant those expressions.
Okay, thank you for that. And Asel, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I want to share you that something difference because I think we learned English from kindergarten, starting with the letters and continuing on that in schools. This helped us to get an overview of the language, and then I built on that by listening to videos and joining courses and so on. And until now, I try hard to learn more and more about English and different courses. And I learn English at the university to develop more and more in the language. So,
Yeah, Asel, you're right. It's useful to start when you are as young as possible. Yeah. But as you notice yourself, even when you become an adult, you have advantages in being able to study. And you talk about university. I know at the moment the university is not working, but in the future, we know it will be back, and you will have that chance again. So it's yeah, children have an advantage and adults have an advantage. And now that you are coming back to study, you will be able to make rule-based progress, yeah, because you can draw on your knowledge of rules. Nasmi, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Will. And I would a few comments quickly. Just one thing is related to formal language. Is one of the things I think students learn is through, as you mentioned, the chunks, phrases, the blocks, without even understanding their meaning. Like every student, when he learns from first grade or first stage, how are you? What's your name? Automatically he says, my name is, where do you live? I live. So yes, it's like a formula, linguistic formula where they can learn it. Nowadays, I focus a lot on collocation. So two words collocate together, so that makes the students fluent in speaking and writing and understanding. Like, for example, the word commit. The verb commit takes several words: commit a crime, commit a mistake, commit, etc., and so on. So I think, just to clarify to students that Bill is talking about how you learn the language um, um, through using phrases, through using formalic language, and through using chunks, collocated words. I think in using this is the best way to let me say, to learn language fast or faster than just word by word. I would say learning word by word is an old fashion. We should stop teaching vocab. We should teach expressions, phrases,
Yeah.
formulas, and this is what Bill is trying to convey to you. That to me now, when I'm a student in the master program, say I want to do my dissertation on teaching vocab. I say no, that's old-fashioned. Nobody, we shouldn't teach vocab. We should teach expressions, phrases, and that's the best way to learn. That's one thing. Second thing I want to say to my students, I'm talking to you ladies. Notice how Bill praised your language many times from the first session and today, that your language is almost perfect. And remember that Bill teaches many international students who come to the UK. So he has long experience and wide experience of teaching English to non-native speakers, which means he's honest. As he started his session today, he's honest in giving you correct, let me, an accurate and reliable description of your language, including your pronunciation. Now the question is, really, this is something I want to emphasize, that this builds your confidence, and I want you to make sure that you are really great students and you are excellent, and I know you are distinguished students and you can do it. And this is what we build on and what we are trying to enhance your English to be much better. It is better, it is good, it is better. We want to make it best. And all of us are learners. So we want to move up in different ways and levels. Thank you, Will. I'm happy with what the discussion going on now. Okay. Sorry, talking a bit long, but it's okay.
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, this course that we are doing is not about what I think, it's about what Ellis thinks. And Ellis is a super important professor. And so his idea is that formulaic chunks are very useful. And he agrees with, obviously, with Nazmi, or Nazmi agrees with Ellis, that they are, the importance of formulaic chunks is underestimated at the moment. And the second thing I want to say in response to Nazmi is, I'm not surprised that you have good English, because I know you are hardworking, and I'm not surprised that you have good grammar, because you can get grammar and rules from books and from hard work and from motivation. But I'm very surprised at the quality of your pronunciation, which is, I have many students who come here from around the world who do not have your level of clarity in pronunciation. I'm very impressed. Rose, you have your hand up. I'm sorry we kept you waiting.
Actually, I wanted to comment on what Asil said, if there is no problem.
Go.
Okay, as Asil said, we have been learning English since we were 6 years old, but it was like a school subject that we know that we have to study to gain marks. But then when we grew up, we started to learn it as a language to communicate with people all around the world. And I think that's better because the goal is different, and we want to learn as possible as we can to be fluent and be able to talk to all the people around the world.
That's interesting. Yeah, what you are saying makes me think that the role of the teacher when the student is only 6 years old, the teacher has a very important role in making the student have fun, okay? And then later in life, as you say, Roos, you can come back and really study with a different type of motivation. You're not only interested in fun now that you're adults, but you, hopefully, I imagine that your teacher, when you were 6, gave you the idea that learning could be fun. Is that correct, Roos? Did you enjoy learning English when you were 6 years old?
Yes, actually, yes.
Good, good. And it's really important. Okay, excuse me. Vanna, mi porti il cellulare? Occasionally I may speak in Italian to Giovanna because we always speak in Italian together. And I'm just looking at to see the time, but on the screen, you can see my question. What do you think the following means? Reggiti forte, baby, si vola. And Giovanna is laughing because it's not English, it's Italian. I am amazed that somebody put their hand up. Esra, you put your hand up. Do you know what that means? How can you don't speak Italian, do you, Esra?
I don't, but I've searched it right now. I just
You cheated.
yeah, I did.
What?
It means hold on tight, baby, we're flying.
Oh my word, that's perfect. Okay, wow. Very Google Translate. Giovanna is asking me, how did Esra get that right? Obviously, I forgot because I'm an old man about Google Translate. But when I was a child, okay, Esra, well, not when I was a child, when I was 25 and I was trying to learn English, we didn't have the internet. And I learned Italian, excuse me, from cartoons. Okay, so in particular, there was a cartoon I loved called Lupo Alberto. Now, Alberto is a name, Alberto, and lupo is the Italian word for wolf. And Lupo Alberto lived on a farm, and he wasn't a wolf, he was a fox, but he wanted to be a wolf. So he called himself Lupo Alberto. So he lived on a farm, and his girlfriend was, you can see in the picture, was a chicken called Marta. Okay, can you see the picture on the right with Lupo Alberto and Marta?
Yeah, we sang.
Okay, so, and they are sitting on top of a machine called a lawn mower. So it cuts the grass, okay? So I will read you. I will read you from the left to the right. I will translate. So here we have on the left, the bear is saying, but I am sure I left it here. And the second picture, he's very angry. He says, who has taken my lawnmower? He's really angry. And then in the third picture, we have, Esra, can you tell me again what Lupo Alberto is saying?
Hold on tight, baby, we're flying.
That's right, okay. And then Marta, the chicken, is saying, no, Alberto, don't be crazy. Okay, so that's, now, I've almost forgotten why I'm showing you this beautiful cartoon. One, I'm showing it to you because I love Lupo Alberto. And two, I'm showing it to you because it shows my example of a formulaic chunk. So I learned how to say I learned how to say, hold on tight, baby, we're flying, long before I knew the component parts of that phrase. And then later, excuse me, I'm going back a little bit. Just a second. Can we see the phrase on the screen which you chose as your summary for the first paragraph? Formulaic expressions may also serve as a basis for the later development of a rule-based competence. Can you see that phrase? Formulaic expressions may also serve as the basis for the later development of a rule-based competence. So if we go back to Lupo Alberto and we look at this phrase, then we can see that 6 months later, I learned certain things about Italian verbs. Hold, in Italian, you don't say hold on tight. You say hold on yourself tight. I thought, oh, that's very interesting. It's different from the English language. Okay. And in Italian, you don't say we are flying. You say one flies. Oh, that's very different. So I was learning things. I was learning things about rules, and I was pulling them out of formulaic chunks. Okay, so and we could talk about this principle number one, because about chunks. So some other examples for me. So, for example, in French, I tried to learn French. My French is a disaster. I'm a terrible language learner, really, but I know how to say mon pneu est crevé, which means my tire has burst. Okay? So in that situation, I will feel very confident, but I don't understand French. I just have this formulaic chunk, which could be useful for me. And even English speakers, we use formulaic chunks without analyzing them or without really understanding them. There's this strange example which I thought of, the be-all and end-all. Maybe you've never heard of this, but it means everything that we can consider in a situation. And we use it in English. It comes from Shakespeare. We never think about all of the pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. It just means, we know it means everything in a situation. So there will be examples in Arabic where you use formulaic chunks without thinking about what the pieces mean, without maybe understanding what the pieces mean yourself. It's possible. Okay. So, and I want to come back to something that I'm not sure who talked about how are you earlier on. Who was it? Was it Nada? Was it you who talked about how are you?
Yes.
Nada, yeah. And that was a perfect example for me, because I worked 10 years ago, I worked in Libya, in a city called Misrata in Libya, and I learned a phrase, كيف الحال? What do you understand that? That's my Arabic, my terrible Arabic.
Well, actually, your pronouncing for the letter ha is perfect.
You are a very good teacher, because
you once said hala. I was really happy because you said ha, not ha.
Oh, I'm pleased. But what do you understand my phrase? What was I trying to say? Can you translate it into English?
How are you?
How are you?
So you did understand it. Okay. Excuse me, Giovanna wants to come and say, how are you in, because she thinks her Arabic is better than mine.
No, I'm not.
Oh, no.
Hi, everyone. Just a second, see if you can see me. Hi, I wanted to practice my little bit of Arabic, which I'm afraid I don't speak, but I know one sentence. Well, I know a few sentences, but this sentence is my favorite, and it's Hada al-Bahr li. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this sea is mine.
Yes, it's one little bit from one of Mahmoud Darwish poems that I love, and that is the one sentence I know how to say in Arabic. I don't know, one day it will become very useful to me, I'm sure. Sorry.
We want more good teachers.
So, yeah, so my Arabic is only one phrase, but it's a useful phrase, and it's possible in the future that maybe, as Nada said, that I could start to understand the little parts of this phrase and put them together, and they will become useful in the future. I remember an example. Me and Giovanna, we lived 30 years ago, we lived in a country in Africa called Eritrea, and I learned a phrase in the local language, Tigrinya, which was Sabaitay Kataharas, Sabaitay Munta Kataharas Iya, which meant my wife is expecting twins. Okay. And it was useful for me because a few months later, I understood that ka is a way in that language of making a future tense. And I understood that a is something you could put at the end of a word to say my. So that was an example of how chunks can be useful in your future language learning. Okay, but today's lesson is not only about formulaic chunks. I know that Ellis loves them, and I know that Nazmi loves them, and I know that I love them. They are useful things to do and to teach. But Ellis says formulaic chunks are useful, but teaching rules is also a useful thing to do. Okay. And so we need to also talk about teaching rules, because they are also useful in the language classroom. So I'm going to go back and look again at, do you remember Lupo Alberto? Now, can you take a picture of this screen for a second? Because it has two questions. Okay. Have you taken a picture? Maybe you couldn't take a picture, but if you can remember the questions. We're going back to look at Lupo Alberto. Who stole the lawnmower? And who does Marta love? Marta is the chicken. You remember? So who stole the lawnmower? Who does Marta love? Let's go back to the picture. Okay. So, question number 1. Who stole the lawnmower? Do you know the answer? Anyone? The answer is Lupo Alberto. And the second question is, who does Marta love? What is the answer?
Alberto.
The same, yes. So the answer is always the same. The first question, who stole the lawnmower? Lupo Alberto. And the second one, Who does Marta love? Lupo Alberto. Now, when I asked my own students this question, they could not answer the question. Okay, so maybe you will be able to answer a question here which defeated my students. But the question is, look at these two questions. Who stole the lawnmower? Who does Marta love? The first one is a question. The second one is a question. But there's an interesting grammatical difference in the question. Can anybody see a grammatical difference in the question?
Can I answer?
Yes, is it Amina?
Ella.
Allah, yes, please.
The first question asked about the subject, the doer, I mean. The second question asked about the object. For example,
Okay.
Marta loves Albert.
Allah,
When we ask about the doer, we don't use the
okay, Allah,
that order.
Allah, you can stop.
Yes.
Because you have got the answer perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I teach, this is very interesting for me, because I teach a course with the same material. I teach 26 English students. They want to become English teachers, and they are from England. Okay. And I have 26 students, and none of them got this answer correct. Okay. So, Allah, first, well done. You got the answer immediately correct. Okay. And you showed the importance of having a rule-based competence. You know the difference between subject and object. So if we ask a question and the answer is the subject, who stole the lawnmower? Alberto. No auxiliary. If we ask a question, a who question, and the answer is the object, who does Marta love? Lupo Alberto. Then we must have an auxiliary. Now, you, again, well done for knowing that, but it shows the importance of a rule-based competence or learning rules, okay? Now, when I taught this lesson to my students 2 weeks ago, they looked at me after for 10 minutes, they tried to give me answers and they were wrong. And then I finally told them the rule, and they said, oh, wow, that's very interesting. It was like, ding! It was like a light bulb over their heads. They suddenly understood something. And it shows the value also of teaching rules. Nada, you have your hand up.
I think for me, actually, I was thinking about the subject and the object point. And I think for us as an Arab, it's very easy to know the difference, because in Arabic itself, you must differ between the object and between the subject, which is something called i'rab, and it's very, very difficult thing actually. But we are like, it is something usual for us in Arabic itself. So I think it would be the same in English.
Oh, interesting. Okay. You're right that it can be valuable to have other languages in your background, which can give you clues about answers to difficult things. Of course, sometimes having another language in your background can also lead you in the wrong direction, of course, yeah? But it seems, Nada, that in this case, Arabic is useful for you to understand this difference, yeah? Okay, all right. So you have already told me about some formulaic. So I was thinking, do you have any examples when you learnt formulaic chunks? Well, excuse me, I'm going to hide that slide, but can you think of an example when you were learning English of a phrase which you learnt maybe 5 years ago and you loved it and you used it, and then later, ding, you had a light bulb moment and you understood the grammar within the phrase? Can anyone think of an example? I know that Nada
Yes,
before
I know one.
how are you as something that maybe in the future her students will be able to use. But can anyone think of an example from your own experience when you were learning English? Ruse.
Okay, it's a joke actually. Once my teacher asked me a question, why is 6 afraid of 7? The answer is because 7, 8, 9. Actually, I thought about the question many times, but I didn't understand why. But when I took the bus symbol, I know that the bust of it is 8. So we pronounce it the same way.
Ruse, that is a fantastic example. And can I just repeat it slow? Can you repeat it slowly, Ruse, for everybody?
Okay. It's this. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9.
Fantastic. And that's a perfect example of how a formulaic chunk can go on to make sense later, you know, maybe 6 months later, okay? And maybe Roos understood, it's the past tense of eat. So I think it's an interesting example, Roos, because the way that I learned from jokes, you know, Lupo Alberta and Marta and the lawnmower, and you learned something from a joke. It started off as a formula, which you loved, and then it became something that you could break down into pieces and understand. Yeah.
Actually, after this one, I was sharing with my friends many things like, I can steal someone, can I kill one?
Yeah.
A man without a nose, or a nose or body, it's nobody knows.
Yes, it seems that you are learning English a lot from jokes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and all my friends, we're sharing together.
Yeah, these are nice examples. Thank you very much, Ruth. Okay, so let's move on then. So, well, we can, the final, before we finish the lesson, what is interesting about Ellis is that he talks about teaching chunks, formulaic chunks, and he talks about teaching rules, and he says both are important, and I agree, and Nazmi agrees. But what are your feelings? Does anybody have, is it Allah or Amna? Allah?
Mute. It's Amna, yeah.
Amna.
Something important I have learned. When I was learning English, I used to say, for example, my mom is cooking in the kitchen, or my mom is in the kitchen cooking. I thought that the two sentences are the same meaning, but recently I realized that, for example, my mom is in the kitchen cooking. Here we care about the place, where, yeah. But my mom is in the cooking kitchen, is cooking in the kitchen, yeah. Here we care about the action itself. What does my mom do like this?
Yeah. So you learn things and you build on what you know, and you can change your understanding gradually, and that's normal. Yes. Esra, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think that for beginners, they can start with rules because for people that don't know anything about a language, they have to start with simple rules that helps them to uh, form a sentence, for example, and then we can teach them some expressions like, as you said, how are you, what's your name, and these simple forms or formulaic. But for learners that want to improve their language, not just like acquiring, improving their language, using expressions and formulaic chunks is more helpful because they already have a base that they know some rules, and they are not starting from ground zero. So expressions are gonna be more helpful and more.
Okay, well, that's interesting, Esra, because what you are saying is a little bit different from what Ellis says. He says that formulaic expressions are more useful for beginners compared to rules, and you seem to have a slightly different opinion, okay? And that is fine. That is fine, because one of the interesting things for me about reading Ellis's rules is he admits that every expert on language has differing opinions, okay? So all through our course, we will see that nobody really understands perfectly how language learning takes place. Everybody has different opinions, and it's fine if Amna has one opinion and Nazmi has a different opinion and Esra has a different opinion. I have a different opinion. That's fine, because even the experts don't really know for sure what is happening, okay? The important thing, Esra, is if you have your opinion, or Nazmi, if you have your opinion, I have my opinion. If we want to be solid academics, then it's not enough to say, I believe. We need to say, I believe, and this important academic agrees. Okay, so that's why I hope this course will be useful for you, because we can discuss what we think about language learning, and we can also see what a few important academics believe about language learning, okay, and how they disagree. So we're going to finish very, very soon, but is there anything you would like to add? I see Nada, you have your hand up.
I was thinking of learning a language like learning a recipe. A recipe has a lot of steps and ingredients, and if you are a beginner, it's hard to learn all the steps and ingredients at once. So you might start with the simple steps and ingredients and then build up to more complex ones. In language learning, the simple steps and ingredients are the formulaic chunks, which are like ready-made phrases that you can use in everyday conversation. These chunks are like building blocks of language, and they help you to communicate clearly and effectively. And the more complex steps and ingredients are the grammar rules, which are like the fine details to the recipe. These rules can be tricky to understand and use, but they are important for communicating in more nuanced way.
That's interesting. Yes, I agree. I think the recipe- Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, but Hala, you have your hand up.
Well, yeah, I believe and I think it's academically right to not depend on one side. We should work in both sides. When I was young, maybe at my first grades, the first grade and second grade, I didn't love English that much because our teachers used to teaching chunks. So I found it difficult and complicating. So I think that maybe teachers can give us the teaching rules and maybe put videos or I don't know, just like films, videos to us, so so we can pick up some trending expressions and commonly used in English language.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, Hala, because when we continue by looking at Ellis's other principles, we will see that other experts believe that some experts believe that it's pointless to teach rules and it's pointless to teach formulaic expressions. Some people say it's enough just to listen and read, you know. So when you talk about watching videos on the internet, for example, you're saying something which I think is very interesting, which we will see in future weeks. We will be able to discuss this. And Takwa, you have your hand up.
Okay, in my opinion, both are important, but I feel that learning the expressions first is better for me than learning the rules because learning the expressions is easy for us and we can use them without fear of making a mistake. But when the rules learned, we become afraid of making a mistake.
That's really interesting, Takwa. Yeah, and this idea of being afraid is something that Nazmi has already spoken about. You know, the importance of being brave and not worrying about making mistakes. It's difficult, but I agree with Nazmi that it's really important. So Takwa, thank you for that. Yeah, Asad, you have your hand up.
Yes, I agree with my other students say that I think learn with teaching chance. For the beginner, it will lead them to learn faster, especially with the different situation they have to deal with, and they will enjoy the language. And after that, they can learn the rules because it can be very difficult at the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So you agree with? Well, it's not agree or disagree because Ellis says it's 60% and 40%, and maybe Nazmi says no, it's 40% and 60%. We can all have different opinions, yeah, and that's completely, as you've said, it's completely acceptable. This is just the last student I will call on, and then I think Nazmi wanted to say something, and then I will give you your homework for next week. Is it Allah or Amna?
Actually, both.
Go.
Okay, now it's Amna. Actually, for me, I prefer teaching chunks because it helps students pick up language in a natural way, allowing them to use phrases confidently without overthinking at grammar.
Mhm.
Yeah, while teaching rules is also important, actually, for accuracy. Yeah.
Mhm. Good.
You know,
Okay.
for me, Ala, I think both of them are important. Teaching chunks makes learning feel more practical for students, especially in a real life situation. However, teaching grammar rules gives them a foundation, helping them to understand why language works the way it does. And
Yeah,
both can provide good results.
that's nice, Ola. Yeah, it's a nice way for us to finish because you admit that both of them are important for learning a language. Nazmi, was there anything that you wanted to add? You had your hand up before.
Thank you, Bill, and I'm also happy to see this contribution from the student side. This is really a debatable issue, as you mentioned, Bill, about grammar, or to teach or not to teach grammar. That's a big question. Like, to be or not to be, that's the question, as Shakespeare says. My opinion, as it is debatable issue, I would reduce the role of teaching grammar to the minimum and leaving natural inputs to the students to be exposed to the language through more listening, more reading. The more they read, the more they listen, the more they speak, the more they can communicate well. I give example. Language learning is like driving a car, learning how to drive a car. If the driver is giving rules and instructions of how to drive without driving and making mistakes, he or she will never be a good driver, because he has to practice driving and makes mistakes, and through this he will start learning. Exactly, swimming. You can't talk about rules of swimming in the pool or a sea without just throwing yourself into the sea or in the pool of water and try to learn and practice the rules or the instructions. Another thing related to this is, if we just take example of immigrants who immigrate, and refugees who go to any country that doesn't speak their language, or we take the Palestinian workers who used to work in Palestine occupied in 1948 with Israeli companies or in different Israeli cities. All of them picked up language, Hebrew, without being taught rules. So I think picking up, when we teach, we are trying to learn from language acquisition, first language acquisition. And language acquisition is different from language learning. But we will try to make learning as much similar as acquisition. If you look at the children, how all of us learned our first language. Nobody taught us rules when we were young, when we were children. Just we picked up chunks. When you say good morning, sabah al khair, or even in the pronunciation, we made a lot of mistakes. And I would say this in Arabic to my students to convince them, powerful Palestinian or Arab babies, you see, when they say, for example, in English, no sleep, no sleep. ما بدنا بديش نوم no لا انام لا انام لا انام بقول لا انام بقول بديش الطالب doesn't say بديش لا انام means no sleep. It means I don't want to go to bed, I don't want to go to sleep. He says no sleep, no sleep. Similarly, when he mixes tenses and the pronunciation together, he says بكرة لحنا على دال عمي. بكرة لحنا على دال عمي. صح ولا لا الطلاب? Children says this, and we love that as parents and adults. We love them. We love their mistakes in grammar and in tenses. When say بكرة, and he says tomorrow we went to my uncle's house. That's in grammar and tenses. And says yesterday امبارح بدنا نروح على دار عمي. So تعال عسى تعال عسى. When a child comes to his father or someone says تعال عشاء، طبعا عنده كله عشاء وغدا وفطور، فكله وقت عشاء لأنه أسهل. عشاء is easier than فطور. It's long word. Breakfast is long word compared to dinner, which is shorter in Arabic. عشاء or عشاء, and the ayn is difficult. So Hala, when she said you pronounced ha, well, this is really good criterion for good pronunciation. Because one of the difficult Arabic alphabets or sounds is ha for non-Arabs to pronounce. Yes, we need to focus on unconscious learning, unconscious acquisition, input as much as possible. You read more, you listen more, you speak more by practice. It's like driving. The more you drive, the better you learn, especially at the beginning. After some rules, guiding rules, but not to start teaching with rules. That's my opinion. It's not 100% maybe valid, but that's my opinion, based on my long experience in language teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazmi. Thank you. Well, as we continue with this course, we will see different theories will come, and they will bump into our own opinions, and they will bump into the previous week's theories. It's all very interesting and complicated. And just a big thank you to Hala for saying that my pronunciation of ha is okay. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased about that.
Welcome.
Okay. This is your homework for next week. I would like you to read Ellis, principle number 2, which is on page 211. And the title is Instruction Needs to Ensure that Learners Focus Predominantly on...
Excuse me, Bill. Could you please share the slides, please? So they can see the homework.
Oh, excuse me. Stop.
Are you not sharing the slide?
Can you not see the slides?
No,
we can see them.
Oh, Nazmi, I think
I can share them if you like.
Sorry, can the students, can you see the slides? Can you see?
Yeah, we can. They are there.
Okay. Well,
You
Nazmi,
can. I can't.
Oh, okay.
But it's okay. As long as you can see them for me, it's okay.
Okay. Well, as long if the students can see them, for homework, I want you to read.
Yeah, it's fine.
Principle number 2 on page 211. If you are new this week, if you are a new student, then you can find a link to the Ellis Journal article on our website. Is that correct, Nazmi? The students have access to the Ellis article.
Yes, yes.
And the title of next week's, the homework for next week is Instruction Needs to Ensure that Learners Focus Predominantly on Meaning. And these are the questions I want you to answer as you read. There are 4 paragraphs, and you have questions to answer for each paragraph. Nazmi, can you see those or not? No?
I can see them on the slides you sent me. It's okay.
Okay. So you have 4 paragraphs and questions for each paragraph. Okay? So I think that's everything. Yeah. And these are my references for the 3 readings that I mentioned today by Ellis, Palmer, and Mercer. And that is all. My lesson is finished. So thank you very, very much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you and Nazmi next week. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Can I just say a few things quickly? to you and to the students. One is, are the other two references available, or can we make them available to the students?
Okay.
Harmer and Mercer.
Mercer, I made it available last week. Harmer,
Yeah, good.
Unfortunately, Harmer is a book, but I've just referenced Harmer, but I can't share the book with you.
It's okay. Good. Things now. When last time we talked about importance of attendance of students to receive the certificate and to receive also maybe we're thinking of small incentives or whatever. Now I noticed today when I took attendance that about 30% of the students are absent. So out of 24 students enrolled in this course, only 16 to 17 attended today. That's the maximum number. Some of you leave and come back. I know for the problem of the internet, which is okay, acceptable. But generally, I would like to ask you, why do you think 80 students, which means 30% almost, didn't come today? Last time the attendance was better, and the first time was much better. First time only 2 students didn't join us, or second time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students. So 2, 5, today 8. I don't want this to increase over time. Why do you think they couldn't join us? And second, if you think anything we can do to support them and encourage them to attend the remaining session, we are ready to do whatever. If you, for example, changing time because of climate change, if you would like us, any suggestion from you would be good. If you also talk to them and contact them, that will be great. If you keep reminding each other on a Friday or the day before to attend, please, we need feedback from you after we spent almost 3 sessions, 30% of the course. Yes, I can see Taqwa. Yes. Yes, Taqwa.
At first, I would like to say thank you, Dr. Nazmi and Dr. Bill, for this wonderful chance. And I would like to ask Dr. Bill to kindly send the slide shown in each session after the meeting. And in the first and second session, I struggled with internet. And now I was disappointing for this, but I took part in this session and realized that I am able to speaking English even though I have always preferred writing over speaking. And thank you again.
Okay, just before Hala speaks, of course, if students find it difficult to join us from home, then there is always the HopeHub, which students can use where there is the possibility to use the facilities of HopeHub. So I don't know if Salah is here with us or if he wants to say anything about HopeHub.
I can see something.
Yeah, I'm here with you.
Yeah, you're back. It's okay.
Yeah, everyone is welcome. As we mentioned at the beginning of this sessions, we mentioned that we will provide you with internet access and electricity to charge your laptops. Also, I would like to welcome you for maybe one session inside our hub. Maybe you can visit us at Deir al-Balah or al-Mawasi, so we can take some photos. This will encourage us to make several programs for training, English classes, and extra training programs. So if you face any problem with with internet or with electricity, you are welcome to visit us. Just send us a notification on the WhatsApp, and we will prepare a desk and internet so you can attend the classes from our hubs.
Thank you, Salah. Hala, you have your hand up.
Just before that, let me just add one thing to what Salah said. Remember, what Salah said is for free. You can use everything for free. And if you want to use a transportation and the cost of a transportation, then we might pay you for transportation. If you want to move from one place to another, to go to the places that the HopeHub hub in Deir al-Balah, and we sent you the address at the beginning. Salah sent you the address at the beginning of the course. So we are trying. What I want to say, please ask if there is any challenge you face. Please let us know. So we want to help you. You see, if there is any difficulty, any challenge that helps you to continue and helps your colleagues to continue, we are ready to facilitate, and we are flexible, also very flexible in supporting you and helping you to gain the most of this course and to learn more and to attend and participate in all the session, inshallah. We are very keen to the success of all of you. And you know, you were selected, and many other students were keen to join us and were sad when we didn't select them. And they were fighting with me. So we don't want some students just to be selected and not to waste an opportunity for others. So they didn't benefit and didn't let others benefit. So that's not good. It's not fair. If some students, now next time, if some students, one student, for example, missed 4, I will say bye-bye to her. And I'll think about maybe asking someone to replace her or whatever. Let's see how things go on.
Okay, Hala, have your hand up, Hala.
Yes.
Yeah, at first, thank you for your gentle effort and your, I forgot the word about our coming to the hub. But I want to mention the internet connection is not the only problem. Maybe because this semester has began, and we had exams at the last week. So students feel confused and they don't put plans for their studying and, you know, for their days. So when Friday comes, they feel like confused and they out of time, and they can't be here with us.
Okay, Hala, thank you. That's useful information to know. I know it's difficult now that IUG is starting work with students and lessons again. It must be very complicated to bring all of your commitments together. I understand the problem there. Yeah. Asmi, is there anything else you would like to say? Or
No, thank you. But yeah, I'll just advise all the students to contact their colleagues and also who missed today's lecture, because really or session, really, when I see 8 are absent, that's it's a red light to me at the beginning. That okay, be careful, because I am still the 3rd session. If we continue like this, 2, 5, 8, then in session 7 or 8, we will have a very small number. And this is not good, because I'm worried about what? I'm worried not about these who are absent. I'm worried about those who were keen to attend and to participate. And they are excellent students like you, but we are limited by the number. We couldn't take more than 20, 25 maximum. So they missed the opportunity and you know them, they are very excellent students as well. We took the top, and we still have the top. And it was tough process of selection to me, because, mashallah, you are the best students in Palestine. I can say, yes, you are the best students according to what I saw. Your academic record and GPA and Tawjih results, you are the best of the best. So, and there are others who are also some of the best of the best. We don't want them to lose this opportunity. So that's not good. For we are spending a lot of time and effort, and we want the maximum number of students to benefit from this. You see, because we are planning and working, and instead of benefiting only 15, we want to benefit 25, which is much better.
Okay.
You see, that's the ultimate goal of us. Yes. Yes.
Can I suggest that me and you, we have a meeting next week, and I'm happy to talk to you about this. And can I also just say thank you to all of the students who are here. You are fantastic.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. It's a pleasure. It continues to be a pleasure to me every Friday to meet you. So, Nazmi, I'm happy to talk to you later in the week. Yeah.
Okay. Ready, as always.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for joining me. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.
You too. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Goodbye, Salam. Bye-bye.